In the heart of Detroit's industrial district, where dreams often rust alongside abandoned factories, Marcus Henderson's weathered hands tell a story of 20 years fixing cars in his modest garage. When a gleaming Rolls-Royce Ghost pulls up one rainy evening, it brings more than just another repair job. The owner, Victoria Chase, CEO of Chase Innovations, has already consulted 5 specialists, each claiming the engine problem is unfixable. But Marcus sees something they missed. Using tools he crafted himself and intuition honed through years of experience, he achieves the impossible in mere hours. What Victoria offers him next will change not just his life, but his daughter's future forever. But can a man who spent his life keeping others' dreams running dare to chase his own? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The socket wrench felt different in Marcus's hands than most tools, heavier, more personal. He'd fashioned it himself from scrap metal during the lean months after Emily passed, when even basic equipment was a luxury he couldn't afford. The metal reflected the dim light of dawn as he finished tightening the last bolt on Mrs. Rodriguez's ancient Corolla. "Dad?" Sarah's voice echoed from the apartment stairwell above the garage. "Did you forget about breakfast again?" Marcus smiled, setting down the wrench. His 12-year-old daughter stood at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, looking so much like her mother it made his heart ache. She wore the navy blue uniform of Detroit Charter Academy, a scholarship he'd fought tooth and nail to secure. For her, "Just finishing up, sweetheart. Mrs. Rodriguez needs her car for work this morning." "Mrs. Rodriguez needs her car every morning," Sarah said, descending the stairs with the quiet grace that seemed beyond her years. "But you need breakfast. Mom always said, a mechanic runs on food, not fumes." They finished together, sharing a bittersweet smile. The kitchen above the garage was small but tidy, with homework papers neatly stacked on one end of the scratched Formica table. Sarah had already set out 2 bowls of cereal and a pot of coffee that smelled better than anything this side of heaven. "Bills came," she said quietly, nodding toward a stack of envelopes by the toaster. The red "Final Notice" stamp on the top. One made Marcus's stomach clench. "Nothing to worry about, baby girl. Johnson's Mercury comes in this afternoon. That'll cover the electric. And I've got 3 oil changes scheduled before noon." Sarah nodded, but her eyes held that old soul wisdom that had emerged after her mother's passing. "I saw you counting the grocery money twice last night." Marcus reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Hey now, that's my job to worry about, not yours. You focus on maintaining that 4.0 average. How's that science project coming along, Mrs.? Peter says mine's the best in class." Pride crept into her voice. "I used your old engine parts to demonstrate mechanical energy conversion. Jimmy tried to say I cheated because my dad's a mechanic, but Mrs. Peters told him understanding comes from living with something, not just reading about it." The pride in her voice warmed Marcus more than the coffee. He'd dropped out of college when Emily got sick, but Sarah had her mother's brains and her father's determination. She was going to break the cycle, go further than either of them had dreamed possible. A heavy knock from downstairs interrupted their moment. "Henderson Auto Repair," a voice called out. "We don't open till 8. Marcus called back, checking his watch. 7:15 a.m. "Emergency, please, my cab. I've got airport runs scheduled." Marcus sighed, meeting Sarah's understanding gaze. "Go," she said, gathering the dishes. "I'll catch the early bus." "You sure? I can drive you." "Dad," that tone again, so like her mother's. "Go fix the taxi. I've got this." He kissed her forehead, grabbed his thermos, and headed downstairs, the weight of responsibility settling familiar on his shoulders. The socket wrench went into his pocket, his lucky charm, his reminder of harder times survived. The day stretched ahead. Mrs. Rodriguez's Corolla, 3 oil changes, Johnson's Mercury, and now a taxi with airport runs. Every job critical to someone's livelihood. Every repair a thread in the web of working-class Detroit, keeping the city's heart beating. Marcus adjusted his name patch. faded but clean, like everything else in his life, and opened the garage door to greet his first customer of the day. The taxi driver's anxious face reminded him of his own, all those mornings rushing to make school drop-off when Emily was too sick to drive. "Let's take a look," he said, patting his pocket where the homemade wrench rested. "Tell me when the trouble started." Behind him, he heard Sarah leaving through the side door, her footsteps quick and sure. His daughter, walking into her future, with the same quiet determination that had kept him going all these years. Some days, that thought alone was enough to make every struggle worthwhile. Victoria Chase's Hermes briefcase sat open on her mahogany desk, revealing a stack of repair receipts that could have paid Marcus's rent for 6 months. She rubbed her temples, scanning the latest diagnosis from the Rolls-Royce dealership. Engine, fault untraceable, recommend full replacement. "Miss Chase," her assistant James hovered in the doorway. "I may have found someone." Victoria didn't look up. "If you're about to suggest another overpriced specialist—" "Actually, he's not a specialist. At least not in the conventional sense." James placed a worn business card on her desk. The simple text read, "Henderson Auto Repair, we fix what others can't. A neighborhood mechanic." Victoria's perfectly manicured nail tapped the card. "For a $500,000 car? He has a reputation in the community. I heard about him. From my uncle's friend. Apparently, he rebuilt a '67 Mustang's entire electrical system using modified parts he fabricated himself. The owner had tried 3 classic car specialists before him." Victoria lifted an eyebrow. In 15 years of running Chase Innovations, she'd learned to trust her instincts about people. James wasn't one to make frivolous suggestions. "Tell me more." "He's been operating that garage for 20 years. Solo operation. People say he has a gift for diagnosing problems others miss. Doesn't advertise, doesn't have a website, works purely on word of mouth." Victoria glanced at her car through the office window, its sleek silver form catching the afternoon light. 6 weeks of failed diagnostics had cost her more than money. It had cost her time, her independence, her peace of mind. The Ghost wasn't just transportation, it was the first major purchase she'd made after taking over the company, a symbol of everything she'd accomplished. "Make the call," she said finally. "But James, don't mention who I am. I want to see how he handles this without the pressure of knowing he's working for Chase Innovations." James nodded, already dialing. Victoria returned to her paperwork, half listening. To the conversation. "Good afternoon, is this Mr. Henderson?" "Yes, we have a Rolls-Royce Ghost with an engine problem. I understand you're booked, but—" "No, the dealership couldn't fix it. 5 other shops have tried. Please, it would mean a lot to my employer." Victoria watched James's expression shift from concern to relief. "Tomorrow evening?" "Yes, that would be perfect. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. We'll see you then." "Well?" Victoria asked as he ended the call. "He was reluctant at first, said he's not equipped for luxury vehicles. But when I mentioned that 5 other shops failed," James smiled. Something changed in his voice, like the challenge interested him more than the potential payment. Victoria nodded slowly, closing her briefcase. That told her more about Marcus Henderson than any professional recommendation could have. In her experience, the best engineers weren't motivated by money or prestige, they were driven by the pure satisfaction of solving what others couldn't. "One more thing," James added. "He insisted on doing the work at his own garage, said something about needing his tools and setup." Victoria glanced again at the stack of useless repair receipts from prestigious shops with gleaming facilities and state-of-the-art equipment. "Fine. Sometimes the best craftsmen prefer their own workshops. Send a driver to take the car over tomorrow evening." "You're not going yourself?" "No." Victoria smiled slightly. "But I'll be there shortly after. I want to see how Mr. Henderson approaches this when he thinks he's just dealing with another client's car." She picked up his business card again, studying the simple text. 20 years in the same neighborhood garage, solving problems others couldn't. There was something appealing about that kind of consistency, that quiet confidence. In a world of flashy startups and overnight successes, she'd learned to appreciate people who built their reputations slowly, brick by brick, repair by repair. James, make sure all my evening meetings tomorrow are moved. I have a feeling this is going to be interesting. Marcus was closing up for the day when the Rolls-Royce Ghost rolled silently into his garage, its silver paint catching the last rays of sunset. Even dormant, the vehicle radiated elegance, a machine so far removed from his usual clientele that he felt a moment of doubt. But then he saw it, a subtle irregularity in the engine's idle, barely perceptible but telling. "Beautiful machine," he said to the driver, who handed him the keys with a practiced formality. "How long has the misfire been happening?" The driver blinked. You can tell that just from watching it idle. Marcus didn't respond, already opening the hood with a reverence earned through decades of experience. The 6.75-litre V12 engine was a masterpiece of engineering, but somewhere beneath its polished surface lurked a flaw that had stumped 5 specialist shops. He was reaching for his diagnostic notebook when the click of heels on concrete announced, "Another arrival." A woman in a tailored charcoal suit stood in the doorway, her posture suggesting someone accustomed to commanding rooms much larger than his garage. "Mr. Henderson, I'm Victoria Chase. It's my car you're looking at." Marcus wiped his hands before shaking hers, noting the firm grip, the assessing intelligence in her eyes. "Most owners send their cars with drivers, especially to a place like this. I prefer to understand things firsthand." She glanced around his garage, not with the disdain he'd expected, but with genuine curiosity. "Tell me what you see." Instead of answering immediately, Marcus pulled his creeper stool over to the engine. The familiar action transported him back 25 years to the community college automotive program where Emily had first caught his eye. She'd been the only woman in the class, determined to prove herself in a male-dominated field. That same determination now radiated from Victoria Chase. "The misfire's irregular," he said, making notes in his worn leather notebook. "Most shops probably focused on the obvious suspects, fuel injectors, spark plugs, coil packs, but the pattern's wrong for those." Victoria moved closer, her interest evident. "Explain." "In a V12 this sophisticated, everything's interconnected. The obvious problems get caught by the diagnostic computers, but sometimes—" He reached down, laying his palm flat against the engine block, feeling its subtle vibrations. "Sometimes you need to listen to what the machine's trying to tell you." A memory surfaced, Emily teaching him to diagnose by touch, her hands guiding his over a failing alternator. "Machines speak their own language," she'd said. "Our job is to learn to listen." "There," he murmured, eyes closed in concentration. "The vibration changes every 7th cycle. That suggests—" He straightened up, flipping through his notebook to a diagram he'd drawn years ago. "Your timing chain tensioner is microscopically misaligned. Probably happened during the last service. The computer can't detect it because it's within normal parameters, but at high RPMs it creates a cascade effect through the valve train." Victoria studied him with newfound intensity. "You got all that from feeling the engine. 20 years of experience teaches you things no computer can measure." He showed her the diagram, his precise technical drawings a sharp contrast to the notebook's weathered pages. "See this interaction here? Most modern mechanics rely so heavily on diagnostic computers that they miss the subtle mechanical relationships. But in a precision engine like this, every component affects every other component." Victoria finished, her eyes brightening with understanding. "Like a symphony orchestra, one instrument slightly out of tune affects the entire performance." Marcus nodded, surprised and pleased by her grasp of the concept. "Exactly. The tensioner's misalignment is like a violin player's finger position being off by a millimeter, barely noticeable in isolation, but it throws off the whole composition. Can you fix it?" He hesitated, studying the engine again. "Yes, but I'll need to fabricate a specialized alignment tool. The factory ones aren't precise enough for what I need to do. How long? Give me 3 hours. Victoria checked her watch, a timepiece worth more than his annual rent, then looked back at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I'll wait. Miss Chase, I'm sure you have more important... Mr. Henderson, she interrupted softly. I've spent 6 weeks and an obscene amount of money watching specialists fail to diagnose this problem. You identified it in 5 minutes. I think watching you work might be the most important thing I could do with my evening. Marcus's diagnostic notebook lay open on his workbench, its pages filled with decades of accumulated knowledge. As he sketched the custom alignment tool he'd need, Victoria watched with growing fascination. Those calculations, she said, gesturing to his precise technical drawings. Where did you learn engineering at that level? Marcus's hand moved steadily across the page. Started community college for mechanical engineering. Had to drop out when... He paused, then continued. Life had other plans. But I never stopped studying. Every broken engine is a textbook if you know how to read it. He moved to his metal lathe, salvaged years ago from a shuttered machine shop. The rhythmic sound of metal shaping metal filled the garage as he crafted the tool he'd envisioned. Victoria shed her suit jacket, settling onto a worn shop stool. Most people would have ordered the part, she observed. Most people would have replaced the entire engine. He tested the tool's edge, making minute adjustments. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most expensive one. A comfortable silence fell, broken only by the precise sounds of craftsmanship. Marcus felt Victoria's gaze following his movements as he returned to the engine, his newly crafted tool fitting perfectly into the space he'd identified. There, he murmured, more to himself than his audience. Feel how the vibrations changed? His hands moved with surgical precision, making microscopic adjustments. The tensioners realigning. Listen. Victoria stepped closer, her expression intent. The engine's subtle dissonance resolved into perfect mechanical harmony. It's like tuning a piano, she said softly. Marcus smiled, remembering Sarah's recent school concert. Funny you should say that. My daughter plays violin. She talks about finding the perfect pitch by ear, not just by electronic tuner. Same principle here. You have to trust your senses as much as your instruments. He made one final adjustment, then stepped back. Start her up. Victoria pressed the ignition. The V12 engine came to life with a purr so smooth it was almost inaudible. Her face lit up with an unguarded joy that transformed her entire bearing. Incredible, she breathed, listening to the engine's perfect rhythm. Simply incredible. Marcus began cleaning his tools, the familiar routine grounding him after the intense focus of the repair. I'll write up your invoice. How long have you been running this garage, Mr. Henderson? The question caught him off guard. 20 years next month. Started right after. He gestured vaguely to a faded photograph on the wall, himself and Emily on opening day, their smiles bright with promise. Victoria studied the photo, then turned back to him with an intensity that made him straighten unconsciously. And in those 20 years, how many impossible problems have you solved? I just fix what's broken, Miss Chase. No, she shook her head. You do much more than that. You see patterns others miss. You understand machines on an intuitive level. And you've been doing it all from this garage, with homemade tools and self-taught engineering. Marcus felt suddenly exposed, as if she were seeing past his careful defenses to something he'd buried long ago. Dreams of engineering school, of designing rather than just repairing, of building something larger than himself. What I see, Victoria continued, her voice measured but charged with purpose, is wasted potential, not in your work. Your work is brilliant, but in its scope, you could be doing so much more. He thought of Sarah's college brochures, of the bills piling up, of the dreams he'd set aside. Maybe, but this garage puts food on the table, keeps my daughter in a good school. Sometimes that's enough. Victoria's eyes softened with understanding. And if I told you it doesn't have to be enough, that there might be a way to do both, to keep providing for your daughter and to finally use your full potential. Before Marcus I could respond, his phone buzzed. Sarah's text read, "Don't forget to eat dinner, Dad. There's leftover lasagna upstairs." Victoria noticed his small smile. "Your daughter? She takes care of me as much as I take care of her." He pocketed the phone, suddenly aware of how late it had grown. "Miss Chase, whatever you're thinking, sleep on it," she interrupted, reaching for her briefcase. "Think about what you could do with proper resources, a real engineering team, and the chance to solve more than one impossible problem at a time. Think about what that could mean for your daughter's future." She placed her business card on his workbench. "Call me tomorrow after you've had time to consider what I'm really offering here." The Chase Innovations business card felt impossibly heavy in Marcus's pocket the next morning. He'd stayed up late researching the company, a leader in sustainable engineering solutions with patents in everything from electric vehicle technology to renewable energy systems. The kind of place he'd dreamed of working before life took its detours. His phone rang just after 9. "Mr. Henderson? James Morton, Ms. Chase's assistant. She'd like to meet with you this afternoon to discuss a business opportunity." "Would 2 o'clock suit?" Marcus glanced at his appointment book. 3 oil changes, a brake job, Mr. Peterson's radiator. "I have customers scheduled." Ms. Chase anticipated that. "She's arranged for a highly qualified temporary mechanic to cover your appointments, if you're amenable. She feels this conversation shouldn't be rushed between repairs." The suggestion sparked an odd mix of irritation and intrigue. "She's pretty confident about this meeting." "Ms. Chase is confident about everything, Mr. Henderson. It's part of why she's successful." A pause. "She also mentioned that if you're concerned about lost income, she'll compensate you for the full day, regardless of our discussion's outcome." Marcus thought of the bills on his counter of Sarah's upcoming school fees. 2 o'clock, then. The Chase Innovations headquarters rose like a gleaming monument to modern architecture, all glass and sustainable materials. Marcus parked his weathered pickup between sleek luxury vehicles, straightened his cleanest work shirt, and tried not to feel like an imposter as he approached the reception desk. "Mr. Henderson," the receptionist smiled warmly. "Ms. Chase is expecting you. James will escort you up." The elevator ride to the top floor gave Marcus time to study James. Young, impeccably dressed, radiating quiet efficiency. "Ms. Chase was impressed by your work last night," James offered. "I haven't seen her this excited about a prospect in years." Before Marcus could respond, the elevator opened directly into Victoria's office suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Detroit's skyline, the old industrial districts where he'd spent his life barely visible in the distance. Victoria rose from behind her desk, today's suit a deep navy that matched the Detroit sky. "Marcus, thank you for coming." She gestured to a comfortable seating area. "Please sit. Would you like coffee?" He settled into a chair that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Thank you, no. I admit I'm curious about why I'm here." Direct. "Good." Victoria sat across from him, her posture both relaxed and commanding. "Let me be equally direct. I want to offer you a position at Chase Innovations as our head of custom engineering solutions." Marcus waited for more, but she simply watched, him letting the offer stand on its own. That's quite a title for a neighborhood mechanic. "We both know you're far more than that. Your solution last night, that was elegant engineering, not just mechanical repair. You did in 3 hours what teams of specialists couldn't do in 6 weeks." She leaned forward slightly. "I need that. A kind of innovative thinking. More importantly, I need someone who understands both the theoretical and practical aspects of engineering." She handed him a folder, not the expected corporate paperwork, but a prospectus for a new division. "We're expanding into custom retrofit solutions for sustainable transportation, taking existing vehicles and making them more efficient, more environmentally sound. It's not just about electric conversions, it's about finding creative ways to bridge the gap between old technology and new possibilities." Marcus opened the folder, his engineer's mind already seeing the potential. You want to make green technology accessible to regular people? Exactly. Not everyone can buy a new Tesla. But what if we could help traditional mechanics upgrade their customers' existing vehicles? Create standardized but adaptable solutions for common models. Her eyes lit with genuine passion. We have the resources and the vision. What we need is someone who understands both the engineering challenges and the real-world implementation. The salary figure on the proposal made Marcus's breath catch, but it was the technical specifications that truly captured his attention. This was engineering at its most practical and innovative, exactly the kind of work he'd dreamed of doing. There's more, Victoria continued softly. The position includes comprehensive benefits, including full college coverage for dependents. Sarah's face flashed in his mind. You've done your research. I make it my business to understand what matters to potential partners. She met his gaze directly. Your daughter's bright future matters to you. This position could secure it. Marcus closed the folder slowly. Why me? You could hire any top engineer in the country. I have top engineers. What I need is someone who sees the poetry in machines, who understands that every engine has a story to tell. She smiled slightly. Someone who can craft precision tools from scrap metal and diagnose complex problems by touch. That kind of intuitive genius can't be taught in any university. The respect in her voice was genuine, without a trace of condescension. Still, I have obligations, customers who depend on me. We'll handle that transition properly. Help your customers find new, reliable mechanics, maybe even set up a training program, teach others your diagnostic methods. She stood, moving to the window. Marcus, I'm not asking you to abandon your community. I'm offering you the chance to impact it on a larger scale. Sarah sat cross-legged on their worn couch, a college brochure for MIT spread across her lap. Marcus watched her from the kitchen doorway, remembering how Emily used to sit in exactly the same way, dreaming exactly the same dreams. Dad? Sarah looked up, sensing his presence. You're home early, and you're wearing your good shirt. Her eyes narrowed with teenage perception. What happened? Marcus settled beside her, noticing how the brochure's glossy pages caught the afternoon light. Something interesting came up today. Remember that Rolls-Royce from yesterday? The one with the impossible engine problem? Sarah's face brightened. Did you fix it? I did, but that's not the interesting part. He took a deep breath. The owner is Victoria Chase, CEO of Chase Innovations. She offered me a job. Sarah's eyes widened. Chase Innovations? The sustainable technology company? At his surprised look, she rolled her eyes. Dad, I do pay attention in science class. They're revolutionizing green energy integration. What kind of job? Head of Custom Engineering Solutions. The title still felt foreign on his tongue. Running a new division focused on retrofitting older vehicles with sustainable technology, full benefits, including, he tapped the MIT brochure, complete college coverage for dependents. Sarah went very still, her fingers tightening on the brochure's edges. Any college you can get into, he smiled softly, which, knowing you, means anywhere you want. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back with characteristic determination. What about the garage? Your customers? Mrs. Rodriguez's ancient Corolla. Trust his daughter to think of others first. Miss Chase suggested setting up a training program, helping our customers transition to other reliable mechanics. Maybe even teaching them some of what I know. Mom would have loved that. Sarah's voice was quiet. She always said you should be teaching, sharing what you know. The mention of Emily squeezed Marcus's heart. He reached for the small photo album. They kept on the coffee table, opening it to their favorite picture. Emily in her mechanic's overalls, pregnant with Sarah, beaming in front of their newly opened garage. She had such big dreams for us, Sarah continued, tracing her mother's smile through the plastic sleeve. Remember how she used to talk about you designing engines someday, not just fixing them? She's the one who taught me to feel the engines. to understand their rhythms. Marcus's voice roughened with memory. Said machines speak their own language, and the best engineers are the ones who learn to listen. Sarah leaned against his shoulder, a gesture that reminded him she wasn't quite grown up yet, despite her maturity. Are you scared? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? Because I am a little. Change is scary, even good change. She straightened up, meeting his eyes with Emily's direct gaze. But Mum also used to say that sometimes the scariest choices are the most important ones. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders, marveling at how his daughter had grown into such a wise young woman. When did you get so insightful? Must be those good genes you and Mom gave me. She picked up the MIT brochure again, this time with new purpose. You know what this means, right? You'll have to help me with calculus. No more claiming you're too rusty. He laughed, feeling something tight in his chest begin to loosen. Deal, though I might need to brush up myself. Ms. Chase mentioned their engineering department is pretty advanced. We can study together. Sarah's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. And maybe I could intern there someday, learn about sustainable engineering firsthand. The hope in her voice made every doubt about this decision fade away. This wasn't just about him anymore. It never had been. It was about giving Sarah the chances Emily had dreamed of, about honoring his late wife's belief in his potential. First things first, he said, pulling out Victoria's business card. I need to make a phone call. You sure about this, baby girl? It'll mean big changes. New school, new neighborhood. Sarah stood, gathering her college brochures with careful reverence. Dad, you've spent my whole life making sure I could reach for my dreams. Maybe it's time you reached for yours too. She kissed his cheek. I'll start dinner while you call. And Dad, tell Miss Chase yes. The weight of the new apartment keys in Marcus's pocket felt strange as he stepped into the Chase Innovations lobby on Monday morning. The security guard, who'd eyed his pickup truck skeptically just minutes before, now straightened respectfully. At the sight of his employee badge, "Good morning, Mr. Henderson. Ms. Chase asked me to tell you she's arranged a welcome breakfast in the engineering conference room, 10th floor." The elevator doors opened onto a scene from another world, floor to ceiling. Windows turned Detroit's morning light into an ethereal glow across spotless workstations. Dozens of screens displayed complex technical renderings, while engineers in casual business were huddled around 3D printers and prototype displays. James appeared at his elbow. "Welcome to the engineering division, Marcus. Ready to meet team." His team. The words still felt surreal, like someone else's life he'd accidentally stepped into. They passed workstations where conversations about thermal efficiency algorithms and regenerative braking systems drifted through the air. Marcus understood every technical term, but the corporate packaging felt foreign. The conference room held about 20 people, all trying to look casual while obviously studying their new boss. Victoria stood at the head of the table, commanding. Attention without effort. Everyone, this is Marcus Henderson, our new head of custom engineering solutions. Her smile held genuine warmth. Marcus brings something unique to our team. Decades of hands-on experience combined with innovative, problem-solving abilities that frankly impressed even me. She gestured to the group. Your core team, Dr. Sarah Chen, lead systems engineer, Mike Rodriguez, sustainability specialist, Dr. James Park, electrical systems, and Lisa Martinez, project manager. Each nodded in turn, their expressions ranging. From polite interest to barely concealed skepticism, Dr. Chen spoke first, her tone carefully neutral. Ms. Chase mentioned you solved the Ghost's engine problem. Would you mind walking us through your diagnostic process? Marcus recognized the question for what it was, a test. He moved to the whiteboard, picking up a marker with the same confidence he'd pick up a wrench. The interesting thing about complex engine systems is how they mirror natural harmonic patterns. For the next 10 minutes, he outlined his analysis, sketching diagrams and explaining the interconnected nature of mechanical systems. The room's atmosphere shifted subtly as he spoke, professional skepticism giving way to genuine interest. Dr. Park leaned forward. That's essentially chaos theory applied to mechanical systems. You developed this methodology yourself? Through practice and observation, yes. Marcus capped the marker. Every machine has its own rhythm, its own language. Sometimes the most sophisticated problems require us to simply listen more carefully. Lisa Martinez was making rapid notes. This could revolutionize our diagnostic protocols for the retrofit program. Instead of replacing entire systems, we could identify and upgrade specific components for maximum efficiency. Victoria's smile widened slightly. Exactly why Marcus is here. She turned to him. Your office is ready. James will show you the setup, then Lisa will brief you on our current projects. The office stopped Marcus in his tracks. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, his old neighborhood visible in the distance. A state-of-the-art computer system dominated one wall, while another held a sophisticated engineering workstation. But what caught his eye was the display case mounted prominently near his desk. Your tools, Victoria explained, joining him. James mentioned you might want to keep them close. His homemade socket wrench sat in the center, carefully mounted and spotlit like a museum piece. Around it, space waited for other tools, other innovations. A reminder, she continued softly, of where innovation really comes from. Not always from the fanciest labs or the most expensive equipment. Marcus touched the glass gently. Thank you. Get settled in. Lisa will be by in an hour with the project files. Victoria paused at the door. Oh, and Marcus? The previous engineering. Director's parking spot is yours now. No more leaving that pickup in visitor parking. Alone in his office, Marcus took a deep breath. Through the windows he could just make out the industrial district where his garage stood. Yesterday he and Sarah had finished moving into their new apartment. A beautiful two-bedroom unit in a secure building, closer to her school and his work. She'd spent hours arranging her books in her new room, planning space for future engineering. Texts with characteristic optimism. His phone buzzed with a text from her. First day, remember what Mom always said about new beginnings. Marcus smiled, remembering Emily's words. Every challenge is just a problem waiting for the right tool to solve it. He turned to his computer, where dozens of unread emails already awaited his attention. Time to learn some new tools, some new rhythms. Time to prove that Victoria's faith in him wasn't misplaced. The socket wrench caught the morning light, casting a familiar shadow across his modern desk. Old wisdom meeting new opportunities. Maybe that's what innovation really meant, building bridges between what was and what could be. The blueprint spread across Marcus's desk represented a month of work, his first major project for Chase Innovations. The challenge, develop a universal retrofit system that could convert older commercial trucks to hybrid power without requiring complete engine replacement. 5 engineering teams had already failed. The board wanted results in 2 weeks. Dr. Chen stood at his office window, arms crossed. The thermal management issues alone are solvable, Marcus interrupted, tracing a line on the blueprint. We're thinking about this wrong. Everyone's trying to adapt modern hybrid systems to old engines, but what if we let the old engines teach us something new? He pulled up the 3D modeling software he'd finally mastered. His initial drawings had been on paper, but he'd learned to translate his ideas into the digital language his team understood. Look at the way these older engines handle heat distribution. They're inefficient, yes, but that inefficiency creates patterns we can use. Dr. Chen leaned closer, her skepticism giving way to curiosity. You want to use the existing heat signature as part of the solution? Exactly. Marcus highlighted specific components in the model. Instead of fighting the engine's natural rhythm, we work with it. Create a hybrid system that harvests the waste heat these engines already produce. It's not about perfect efficiency. It's about finding the sweet spot between old and new technology. Lisa Martinez knocked and entered, tablet in hand. The board meeting's been moved up. They want to see our progress tomorrow morning. Marcus felt the weight of his team's eyes. In the past month, he'd earned their professional respect, but this project would make or break their trust. Get everyone in the main lab. We're going to need all night. Hours blurred together as they refined the design. Marcus moved between workstations, his garage-honed instincts translating complex problems into practical solutions. Dr. Park's electrical systems integrated smoothly with Rodriguez's sustainability modifications. Each team member contributed their expertise, but Marcus's intuitive understanding of engines kept everything grounded in real-world application. At midnight, Sarah texted, "Made dinner. It's in the fridge. Don't forget to eat like Mom always." "Reminded you," he smiled, remembering Emily's late nights at the garage, her determination to finish every repair properly. That same spirit filled the lab now. As his team pushed toward their goal, Dawn found them tired but triumphant. The final design was elegantly simple, a hybrid conversion system that could adapt to multiple engine types, using existing mechanical patterns to enhance rather than replace. The prototype simulation results exceeded all expectations. "It's brilliant," Dr. Chen admitted, reviewing the data. "Completely unorthodox but brilliant. The board will want to know how you conceived this approach." Marcus touched his old socket. Wrench, now a permanent fixture on his desk. Sometimes the best innovations come from listening to what's already working, even if it's working imperfectly. Every broken engine taught me something. This is just applying those lessons on a larger scale. The boardroom felt charged with anticipation as Marcus presented. Victoria sat at the head of the table, her expression carefully neutral. He'd insisted on making the presentation himself. His team had earned that right. "The Henderson method," he began, naming the technique after Emily's old diagnostic approach. "Instead of forcing new technology onto old systems, we adapt to existing mechanical patterns. The result is a hybrid conversion system that's more affordable, more adaptable, and more efficient than traditional replacements." He walked them through the design, translating complex engineering into clear concepts. When he finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Victoria smiled. "Estimated production costs, 40% lower than current conversion systems. Installation time reduced by 60%. Any qualified mechanic could perform the conversion with minimal specialized training." The board chairman leaned forward. "And you're confident about these numbers? I spent 20 years keeping working-class people's vehicles running. This system doesn't just work in theory, it works for real people with real budget constraints." Victoria stood. "I think we've heard enough. The board will take a vote, but I believe congratulations are in order. Marcus, you and your team have exceeded every expectation." Later, in his office, Dr. Chen brought him a coffee. "I admit I had my doubts when you first arrived. But what you've done here, it's not just good engineering, it's democratizing sustainable technology." Marcus accepted the coffee, watching the sunset paint Detroit's skyline. "My daughter said something similar last night. Called it engineering with empathy. Smart girl." "Yes, she is," he smiled, thinking of Sarah's college applications spread across their new dining table. "She wants to intern here next summer, you know. Says she wants to learn engineering from both books and experience." Like father, like daughter, Dr. Chen raised her cup in a toast. "To the Henderson method, may it teach all of us to listen a little more carefully to the wisdom hiding in unexpected places." The new family photo on Marcus's desk captured a moment of transition. Sarah, in her debate team uniform, beaming beside him at the Chase Innovations charity gala. 3 months into their new life, and sometimes he still did a double take at their reflections in the building's gleaming windows, himself in tailored suits, Sarah in her private school uniform, both of them learning to navigate this unfamiliar world with grace. "That's a good picture," Victoria said from his doorway. "You both look happy." Marcus glanced up from the prototype designs he was reviewing. "Sarah's thriving here. Sometimes I think she adapted faster than I did. Children often do." Victoria settled into the chair across from his desk, a familiar routine they'd developed over the past months. Speaking of adaptation, the board was impressed by your presentation to the Detroit Mechanics Association yesterday. Word is, you're building quite a following among traditional repair shops. They're cautious about new technology, but they understand the practical benefits. Once I showed them how the hybrid conversion system could expand their business while helping their customers, he shrugged. Mechanics appreciate straight talk and real solutions. You bridge both worlds naturally, Victoria observed. It's a rare gift. A comfortable silence fell between them, the kind that had become more frequent lately. Victoria picked up the framed photo, studying it. Sarah mentioned you missed the last parent-teacher conference because of the prototype deadline. Marcus winced. She told you that? We had lunch yesterday. She wanted advice about the engineering summer program. Victoria's expression softened. She's quite remarkable, your daughter. Reminds me of myself at that age, all ambition and questions. The thought of Sarah and Victoria having lunch, two of the most important people in his new life connecting independently, stirred something warm in his chest. Thank you for taking time with her. Since Emily passed, sometimes Sarah needs someone who understands her academic drive in a way I can't always. You sell yourself short. Victoria replaced the photo carefully. Sarah talks about you constantly, how you help her with calculus, how proud she is of your work here, but she also worries you're working too hard, trying to prove yourself. Marcus leaned back, surprised by her directness. Isn't that part of the job? The job you've already proven you can do brilliantly? Victoria's gaze was steady. Marcus, you're not just a promising experiment anymore. You're a valued leader here. Maybe it's time to let yourself enjoy what you've built. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Dad, don't forget we're trying that new Thai place tonight. No working late. Victoria caught his small smile. Dinner plans. Sarah's determined to expand our culinary horizons. Says we can't eat diner food forever, now that we're upwardly mobile. He chuckled at his daughter's phrasing. She's right. You know, Victoria stood, smoothing her skirt. Which reminds me, the symphony's performing Tchaikovsky next Friday. My usual guest cancelled, and I have an extra ticket. Would you be interested? The invitation hung in the air, laden with unspoken possibilities. Marcus thought of Emily, of their early dates at community college jazz concerts. She'd always said music was mathematics made beautiful. I don't know much about classical music, he admitted, but you understand rhythm, harmony, the mathematics of sound. Victoria's smile held a trace of something more than professional regard. Sometimes expertise in one area translates surprisingly well to another. Before Marcus could respond, James appeared with urgent board documents requiring Victoria's attention. She paused at the door. Think about it. Sarah tells me you have excellent pattern recognition skills. I bet you'd hear things in Tchaikovsky that even regular symphony goers miss. Alone in his office, Marcus studied the family photo again. Sarah's smile, so like her mother's, held no shadows of their harder times. She was blossoming in this new world, moving through it with a confidence that amazed him. Maybe Victoria was right. Maybe it was time to let himself do more than just survive and prove his worth. Maybe it was time to truly live again. He picked up his phone, smiling at Sarah's text about Thai food. Below it, he typed a message to Victoria about the symphony. I'd like that. As long as you don't mind explaining the parts I don't understand. Her response came quickly. Understanding comes in many forms, Marcus. Sometimes the best insights come from fresh eyes, or in this case, ears. He set the phone down, turning back to his prototype designs. The late afternoon sun caught the photo frame, highlighting Sarah's proud smile, reflecting off his own tentatively. Happy expression. A snapshot of their new life, with space in the frame for future possibilities. The failed prototype sat on Marcus's desk like a monument to disaster. $3 million in development costs, 6 months of work, and the hybrid conversion system had catastrophically malfunctioned during its first major field test. The temperature regulation system they'd based on his original design had failed in an unexpected way, damaging one of Detroit Electric's most expensive trucks. "The board wants answers," Lisa Martinez said, pacing his office. "Richardson from legal is already talking about liability concerns." Marcus studied the diagnostic readouts for the 100th time. The data made no sense. The system had performed flawlessly in all previous tests. "Get Dr. Chen and the core team in here. We need to understand what changed between testing and implementation." But before the team could assemble, James appeared with a grave expression. "Emergency board meeting in 10 minutes. They're calling for a full review of the program." Marcus's stomach clenched. A full review could mean the end of everything he'd built here. He thought of Sarah, thriving in her new school, already accepted into 3 summer engineering programs. Of their new life, finally feeling stable after so many years of struggle. The boardroom felt arctic as he entered. Victoria sat at the head of the table, her expression carefully neutral. Board member Richardson, a silver-haired man with cold eyes, stood at the display screen, showing photos of the damaged truck. $3 million. Richardson began without preamble. $3 million, and our reputation with Detroit Electric, one of our most promising potential partners, all because we trusted untested methodology from," he paused meaningfully, "unconventional sources." Marcus felt the old familiar heat of class prejudice, but kept his voice steady. "The Henderson method has proven successful in every previous application. Something changed between our final tests and the field implementation." Yes, Richardson's smile was sharp. Something changed. Or perhaps something was overlooked because we were too busy celebrating our innovative approach to proper engineering. "Protocols." Victoria's voice cut through the tension. "If you have specific concerns about the methodology, Richardson, state them directly." "Gladly." He turned to the board. "We fast-tracked this project based on Mr. Henderson's unique experience. But perhaps there's a reason traditional engineering paths exist. Perhaps gut feelings and garage wisdom aren't sufficient for million-dollar industrial applications." Marcus stood slowly, placing his own diagnostic tablet on the table. "With respect, Mr. Richardson, I'd like to show you something." He connected the tablet to the main display, bringing up a detailed analysis. "This is the thermal signature data from every test we ran, compared to the field test results." The room fell silent as he walked them through the numbers. "The pattern. Deviation doesn't match any normal system degradation. These readings suggest external interference, something actively disrupting the temperature regulation protocols." Dr. Chen, who had slipped into the room, moved closer to study the data. "He's right. These variations, they're not random failures. This looks like sabotage," Marcus finished quietly. "Someone modified the control software between our final test and the field implementation, changed just enough parameters to make the system fail under load." The room erupted in murmurs. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation. It's an observation backed by data." Marcus highlighted specific sections of code. "Look at these timestamps. The changes were made the night before the field test, using high-level access credentials." Richardson's face had gone pale. Marcus continued, his voice level. "Now, I may be just a garage mechanic who got lucky, but I learned a long time ago that engines don't lie. Data doesn't lie. Someone wanted this project to fail." Victoria stood. "James, contact IT security immediately. I want a full audit of all access logs. Dr. Chen, verify Mr. Henderson's analysis independently." She turned to Richardson. "And I believe you have some explaining to do about your recent meetings with our competitors." The next hour passed in a blur of security teams and system audits. By evening, the truth had emerged. Richardson had been feeding information to a rival company, hoping to discredit Chase's hybrid conversion program and drive down their stock price before a planned acquisition attempt. Marcus sat in his office later, exhausted but relieved, when Victoria entered. The board has approved an emergency fund to rebuild the prototype. Richardson's being handled by legal. She studied him thoughtfully. How did you spot it? He picked up his old socket wrench, turning it in his hands. Something my late wife used to say, every machine has its own honest rhythm. When that rhythm changes, there's always a reason, always a story if you know how to read it. The board wanted me to tell you personally, your position here is more secure than ever. What you did today, you didn't just save a project, you protected this company. Marcus nodded, thinking of Sarah's text from earlier. Bad days don't last forever, Dad. Mom always said that, remember? Victoria, he said slowly, about the symphony on Friday. She smiled. I still have the tickets, if you're interested. I am? He returned the smile, feeling the weight of the day lifting. After all this, I think we both deserve to hear something beautiful. The yellowed newspaper clipping lay between them on Victoria's desk. Its headline faded, but still legible. Local waitress wins engineering scholarship. The photo showed a younger Victoria in a diner uniform, her smile fierce with determination. 1992, she said softly, watching Marcus study the article. I'd been working double shifts at my uncle's diner, taking community college classes between serving plates of meatloaf and endless cups of coffee. They'd returned from the symphony an hour ago, the strains of Tchaikovsky still echoing in their minds. Something about the music, about sitting together in the darkness, letting it wash over them, had broken down the last professional barriers. Between them, the regulars at the diner helped me study, Victoria continued, pouring them both a measure of aged scotch. Retired engineers, mechanics, factory workers, they'd quiz me on physics while I refilled their coffee. One of them nominated me for the scholarship. Marcus accepted the glass, recognizing the weight of trust in her sharing this. What made you keep this particular article? To remind myself where I came from. Everyone sees Chase Innovations now, the success, the influence, the polish. She touched the old newsprint gently. They don't see the waitress who learned calculus between taking orders, who wore second-hand clothes to her first board meeting. The board doesn't know. Richardson and his crowd? No. She smiled wryly. They assume I came from money, that my confidence was born in private schools and Ivy Leagues. It's easier sometimes to let them believe that. But you recognize something in me, Marcus said quietly. That first night with the Rolls-Royce, I recognized myself. That same hunger to prove yourself, to use every scrap of knowledge and experience. She met his eyes. When you diagnosed that engine by touch, I saw every lesson I'd learned from those diner regulars, every bit of practical wisdom that fancy degrees can't teach. Marcus thought of Sarah, of her easy movement between worlds, debating quantum physics with her classmates one moment, helping him fix Mrs. Rodriguez's Corolla the next. We underestimate practical wisdom in this world, the kind that comes from doing, from failing, from figuring things out with whatever tools you have. Exactly why I wanted you here. Victoria leaned back, studying him over the rim of her glass. But I never thought I'd find someone who truly understands both worlds. Someone who could help bridge them. The scotch was warm, in his chest, but her words were warmer. Emily used to say something similar, about how understanding machines was really about understanding connections, how things work together, how they affect each other. Tell me about her? Victoria's question was gentle, free of jealousy or hesitation. Marcus pulled out his wallet, unfolding a small photo he always carried. Emily in her mechanic's overalls, laughing as she taught their first automotive class. At the community center, she believed in teaching, in sharing knowledge, said every skill we learned was meant to be passed on. She sounds remarkable. She was. When she got sick, she made me promise to keep teaching, keep learning. Said life was too short to let fear of change hold you back. He carefully returned the photo to his wallet. Sarah has her spirit, that same drive to learn, to grow, to help others understand. Victoria nodded toward the newspaper clipping. My uncle, the one who owned the diner, he said something similar when I got the scholarship. Said success wasn't about leaving your past behind. It was about building bridges so others could follow. The night deepened around them, city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. In the comfortable silence, Marcus felt the last walls between them dissolving. Victoria, he said finally, thank you for sharing this, for trusting me with your story. Thank you for seeing me, not just the CEO, but the waitress who never stopped learning. She gathered the newspaper clipping, handling it with careful reverence. The symphony next month is doing Gershwin, more accessible than Tchaikovsky, or so they tell me. Would you and Sarah like to join me? The invitation held layers of meaning, professional, personal, and something more. A chance to share not just music, but the understanding they'd found in each other's stories. We'd like that, Marcus said, thinking of how Sarah's eyes had lit up when he'd mentioned Victoria's own journey from humble beginnings to success. I think it's time to build some new bridges. Victoria's smile held the same fierce determination as her younger self in the newspaper photo. Together, then. The word settled between them like a promise, like the beginning of a new chapter neither had expected to find. The patent certificate for the Henderson Chase Adaptive Hybrid System gleamed under the office lights, its fresh ink a testament to something larger than innovation. Marcus traced the embossed letters, remembering late nights at his old garage, when such recognition seemed impossible. First page of the Wall Street Journal, Victoria said, entering his office with the newspaper. Your system isn't just changing the industry, it's redefining what's possible in sustainable transportation. The article detailed how Marcus's hybrid conversion method had revolutionized the field by creating a system that could adapt to any existing engine's unique rhythms. They'd made green technology accessible to everyone, from commercial fleets to independent drivers. Orders were pouring in from around the world. The Henderson Chase system, he mused, noting how their names had been linked in the patent. That wasn't necessary, you know. It was my design, built with Chase resources, supported by our team. Victoria perched on the edge of his desk, a habit that had become comfortable over the past months. Besides, you're the one who insisted on profit sharing with every mechanic who gets certified to install it. Marcus smiled, remembering Emily's voice. Success means nothing if you can't share it. The mechanics are the key. They understand their customers' needs, their financial constraints. By making them partners instead of just installers, we're building a network of advocates. The board's calling it revolutionary. Not just the technology, but the entire approach. Victoria handed him another document, this one bearing the Chase Innovations letterhead, which is why they've unanimously approved the expansion. Marcus read quickly, his eyes widening. A training center, the Henderson Institute for Practical Innovation, Victoria confirmed. A place where experienced mechanics can learn to work with cutting-edge technology, where engineering students can get hands-on experience, theory meeting practice, just like you've always advocated. The proposal outlined a comprehensive facility, classrooms, workshops, research labs, and, most importantly, scholarships for promising students from working-class backgrounds. Sarah's already asking to help design the student workshops, Victoria added with a smile. She has some interesting ideas about peer mentoring programs. Marcus thought of his daughter, now thriving in her advanced placement classes, while still finding time to help him teach basic car maintenance at the community center. She'd inherited her mother's gift for explaining complex concepts in accessible ways. There's more, Victoria continued, her voice softening. The board wants to establish the Emily Henderson Memorial Scholarship Full ride for women pursuing degrees in mechanical engineering while maintaining community engagement. Marcus felt his throat tighten. On his desk, next to the patent certificate, sat the photo of Emily teaching her automotive class. Her passion for education, for lifting others up, would live on through this legacy. "The Institute will change lives," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "Give opportunities to people who never thought they'd have a chance in this field, like a waitress studying calculus between coffee refills." Victoria's smile held understanding. "Or a brilliant mechanic crafting precision tools from scrap. Metal? Exactly." Marcus stood, moving to the window. Below, construction had already begun on the Institute's future site. "You know what Emily would love most about this? It's not just about teaching skills. It's about validating practical knowledge, showing that innovation can come from anywhere." Victoria joined him at the window. "The article mentioned something else, about how your approach to problem-solving is changing corporate culture itself. Companies are starting to recognize the value of experience over credentials, of practical wisdom over pure theory. Breaking down barriers," Marcus nodded, "between corporate and working class, between academic and practical, between worlds," Victoria finished softly. Their shoulders brushed, a contact that had become increasingly natural over the past months. Marcus thought of their evening at the symphony, of how Sarah had explained combustion timing to Victoria using musical terminology, of shared dinners where conversation flowed effortlessly between engineering theories and practical applications. Boundaries dissolving, new connections forming. His phone buzzed, Sarah sending a photo of her acceptance letter to the Chase Innovations Summer Engineering Program. The message read, "Mom would be so proud of what you've built, Dad. Of who you've become." "Who we've become," he corrected quietly, including Victoria, his team. The entire network of people who'd helped transform a simple garage mechanic's insights into something revolutionary. Victoria touched the patent certificate gently. "The Henderson Chase system has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" "It does," Marcus agreed, thinking of all the names that would follow, all the innovations that would emerge from this fusion of worlds. "It really does." The glossy magazine spread on Marcus's desk read, "From Garage to Boardroom, the romance revolutionizing Detroit industry." The photo showed him and Victoria at last week's charity gala, their heads close together as they discussed the Henderson Institute's plans with potential donors. The article spun their relationship into a modern Cinderella story, complete with speculations about the widowed mechanic who captured a CEO's heart. Sarah dropped her backpack in the office doorway. "My physics teacher asked if she should start addressing me as Miss Chase today." Marcus winced. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. We knew there might be some attention, but this..." "Dad." Sarah perched on his desk, picking up the magazine. "I'm not upset about the attention. I'm worried about you. You barely slept last night after that board member suggested Victoria was compromising her objectivity. The comment had come during yesterday's project review. A subtle jab questioning whether personal feelings were influencing corporate decisions. Victoria had handled it with characteristic grace, but Marcus had seen the tension in her shoulders. "It's complicated," he admitted. "The Institute's funding is up for final approval next week. Some board members think our relationship might cloud judgment about resource allocation." "That's ridiculous." Sarah's tone held her mother's fierce protectiveness. "The Henderson Chase system is revolutionizing sustainable transport. The Institute's already got a waiting list of applicants. Your work stands on its own." Before Marcus could respond, James appeared in the doorway. "Marcus, Victoria needs you both in her office. There's been a development." They found Victoria, staring at her tablet, her expression carefully controlled. Dr. Chen and Lisa Martinez sat nearby, looking concerned. "Someone leaked internal emails," Victoria said without preamble. "Discussions about the Institute's funding, our project planning, meetings, even..." She paused, meeting Marcus's eyes. "Personal dinner arrangements." Marcus felt Sarah stiffen beside him. "The board member from yesterday?" No proof yet. But the timing? Victoria handed him the tablet. An industry blog had already picked up the story, painting their relationship as a corporate scandal waiting to happen. Comments questioned Marcus's qualifications, suggested favoritism in project assignments, even criticized Sarah's acceptance into the summer program. "This is my fault," Marcus started, but Victoria cut him off. "No, this is about fear of change. We're not just challenging technological norms. We're challenging social hierarchies, corporate culture, assumptions about where innovation comes from." She stood, her determination visible in every movement. "They're using our relationship as a weapon because they can't attack our work directly." Dr. Chen spoke up. "The engineering team is behind you both. We've all seen how your partnership has transformed this company's approach to innovation. And the community outreach numbers are extraordinary," Lisa added. "Applications for mechanic certification programs have tripled. Women's enrollment in technical training is up 60%. Sarah had been quiet, studying the blog post. Now she looked up. "Mom used to say that people who focus on tearing others down are just afraid of being left behind." Victoria's expression softened. "Your mother sounds like she was a very wise woman." "She was." Sarah straightened, her young face serious. "And she'd say, if they want to talk about you and Dad, give them something worth talking about. Show them what this partnership can really do." Marcus felt a surge of pride in his daughter's wisdom. "What are you thinking?" "Move up the institutes. Opening ceremony. Make it public, transparent. Show everyone how your different perspectives make the whole project stronger." Sarah's eyes lit with enthusiasm. "Let them see what happens when corporate resources meet practical innovation, when academic theory meets real-world experience." Victoria was already nodding. "She's right. Instead of hiding from the attention, we use it to highlight what we're really building here." She turned to Lisa. "How quickly can we organize a comprehensive presentation of the Institute's impact projections?" "Give me 48 hours, Lisa replied. "Dr. Chen's team has new data on the certification program's economic benefits." As the others began planning, Victoria moved to Marcus's side. "You've been quiet. Are you comfortable with this level of public scrutiny?" He thought of Emily, of her insistence that true change required courage, of their tiny garage that had grown into something revolutionary, of the woman beside him who shared his vision of breaking down barriers. 20 years ago," he said slowly, "I was a college dropout with a box of homemade tools and a dream of helping my community. Now we're building a future where someone like me can partner with someone like you, not just in business, but in life. That's worth any amount of scrutiny." Victoria's hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. Sarah watched them with approval, already sketching ideas for the ceremony in her notebook. "Besides," Marcus added with a smile, "if they're going to write about us anyway, let's give them the real story. Not about romance revolutionizing industry, but about how different worlds can come together to create something extraordinary." "The Henderson Chaseway," Victoria agreed, squeezing his hand. "Breaking barriers, building bridges, and letting the results speak for themselves." 2 symphony tickets lay on Marcus's desk, beside Emily's old photograph. The Detroit Symphony Orchestra's performance of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue was tonight, and Victoria had left the tickets with a simple note: "When you're ready to talk about what's bothering you." She'd noticed, of course, how he'd grown quieter since the media attention began, how he'd started spending more time in his old garage after hours, tinkering with engines that didn't really need repair. The familiar rhythm of wrenches and metal helping him think. Sarah found him there now, sitting on his old creeper stool, surrounded by the ghosts of his former life. "I thought I'd find you here," she said, settling onto the workbench where she'd spent countless hours doing homework. Victoria called. "She's worried you're having second thoughts about everything." Marcus picked up his old socket wrench, its worn surface reflecting the afternoon light. "Not second thoughts, just trying to make sure I'm honoring your mother's memory properly." "Dad?" Sarah's voice held that gentle wisdom that reminded him so much of Emily. Mom wouldn't want you stuck in the past. She'd want you building something new. I know. It's just, he gestured to the garage around them. This place, what it represented, helping people who couldn't afford fancy dealers, teaching skills that could change lives. Sometimes I wonder if I've strayed too far from that mission. Sarah pulled out her tablet, opening a file he hadn't seen before. I've been working on something. A proposal for the Institute's community outreach program. She handed him the tablet, her eyes bright with purpose. The document outlined a comprehensive plan. Weekend workshops for low-income students, mobile diagnostic clinics for underserved neighborhoods, apprenticeship programs partnering experienced, mechanics with young innovators. At its heart was a vision of technology democratized, expertise shared, barriers broken. It's everything you and Mom believed in, Sarah said softly. Just on a larger scale. The Institute isn't about leaving this world behind. It's about expanding it, making it accessible to more people. Marcus studied the proposal, recognizing Emily's influence in every carefully considered detail. You've put a lot of thought into this. Because I understand what you and Victoria are building. It's not just about hybrid systems or corporate success. It's about bridging worlds, just like you've always done. She took the tablet back, adding, just like you taught me to do. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. The music helps us hear the harmony in different rhythms. When you're ready to listen together. She gets it, you know. Sarah continued, why you come back here, what this place means. She told me about her uncle's diner, how she still visits sometimes just to remember where she started. Marcus picked up the symphony tickets, remembering how Victoria had explained Tchaikovsky in terms of engine harmonics, making the music accessible through the language he understood, how she'd shared her own humble beginnings, not as a past to escape, but as a foundation to build upon. Last week, Sarah said, one of my classmates made a snide comment about us being nouveau riche. Victoria overheard. Know what she did? Invited the whole class to tour the Institute's workshop, showed them how real innovation happens when different perspectives come together. Half of them signed up for the summer mentorship program. Marcus smiled, imagining Victoria in her elegant suit, explaining practical engineering principles to skeptical teenagers, breaking down barriers, building bridges, just as they'd done together. Mom would like her, Sarah said quietly. Not because she's successful or sophisticated, but because she understands what really matters. She sees you, all of you, not just the brilliant engineer or the former mechanic, but everything in between. Marcus looked at the symphony tickets again, then at Emily's photo. The woman he'd loved, who'd taught him to hear the music in machines, would want him to recognize the harmony in this new movement of his life. The Institute opens next month, he said thoughtfully. Your proposal, it's exactly what we need to show everyone what we're really building. And Victoria? She's been patient, giving me space to figure things out. He stood, pocketing the tickets. Maybe it's time to stop hiding in the past and fully embrace the future we're creating. Sarah hugged him fiercely. Mom would be proud. Dad, of all of it. Marcus held his daughter close, feeling the truth of her words. Emily had always believed in evolution, in growth, in the power of love to transform lives. She wouldn't want him clinging to shadows when light beckoned. The symphony starts at 8, Sarah said, pulling back with a smile. That gives you time to change and pick up flowers. Victoria likes lilies. I asked James. Marcus laughed, recognizing Emily's practical romanticism in their daughter. Any other advice? Just be honest. Tell her what you've been figuring out. And Dad? Sarah's eyes sparkled. When she explains Gershwin using engineering metaphors, marry her. The new Chase Innovations logo dominated the auditorium stage, a graceful fusion of gears and circuitry that Sarah had helped design, representing the marriage of practical wisdom and cutting-edge technology. Below it, Marcus stood at the podium, surveying the packed room at the Institute's opening ceremony. Board members mingled with mechanics in work shirts. Engineering students sat beside experienced technicians. Victoria stood stage left, radiant in a suit that matched the deep blue of the Institute's colors, the small lily pinned to her lapel, making him smile at the memory of their night at the Gershwin concert. "The Henderson Institute for Practical Innovation," Marcus began, his voice steady with newfound confidence, "isn't just a training center. It's a statement about where true innovation comes from, the intersection of experience and imagination, of practical wisdom and theoretical knowledge." He gestured to the demonstration areas where certified mechanics were showing visitors the Henderson Chase system. "A year ago, I was fixing engines in a neighborhood garage. Today, we're revolutionizing how the world thinks about sustainable technology. But the most revolutionary thing we're doing isn't technical, it's social." Victoria moved to join him at the podium, their shoulders touching naturally. "We're breaking down the barriers between corporate boardrooms and local repair shops," she continued, their voices harmonizing like they had in all their recent presentations. "Between academic theory and hands-on experience, between different worlds that have so much to teach each other." Together, they unveiled the Institute's centerpiece, a wall of screens showing live feeds from partner garages across the country, where mechanics were already implementing their hybrid conversion systems. Each location represented a bridge between old technology and new possibilities, between traditional skills and innovative solutions. "And none of this would be possible," Marcus added, his voice softening, "without the courage to embrace change. To recognize that growth doesn't mean abandoning our foundations, it means building upon them." He looked to where Sarah sat in the front row, her eyes bright with pride. She'd insisted on wearing both her private school blazer and the old Henderson auto repair cap, a perfect embodiment of their mission to bridge worlds. The presentation continued, with Dr. Chen demonstrating their latest innovations, Lisa sharing impressive adoption statistics, and mechanics from across the country joining virtually to share success stories. But the moment that captured everyone's attention came during the Q&A session. A veteran mechanic from Marcus's old neighborhood stood up. "I've been fixing cars for 30 years, he said gruffly. "Never thought I'd be working with technology like this. But the way you've designed it, the way you teach it, it's like you respect what we already know. Just help us build on it." Victoria's hand found Marcus's as she replied, "That's exactly the point. Innovation isn't about replacing experience, it's about enhancing it. Every mechanic who masters this system brings their own wisdom to it, makes it better." Later, as the crowd mingled during the reception, Marcus found himself back at the podium, looking out over what they'd built. Sarah was demonstrating the training simulators to a group of fascinated board members. Dr. Chen and his old garage regulars were deep in discussion about practical applications of thermodynamic theory. Worlds merging, barriers dissolving. Victoria joined him, her heels clicking softly on the stage. "Penny for your thoughts?" "Just thinking about rhythm," he said, smiling at their private joke. Since that night at the Gershwin concert, they'd developed a language that blended their worlds. Engineering principles explained through musical terms, symphony performances understood through mechanical harmonics. The rhythm of progress. She matched his smile, understanding as always. "The rhythm of life," he corrected softly. "How sometimes the most beautiful music comes from unexpected combinations, like Gershwin mixing classical with jazz, or a CEO falling in love with a mechanic." Her eyes sparkled with memory of their conversation that night, when they'd finally acknowledged what was growing between them. Something like that. He turned to face her fully. "You know, Sarah said something interesting before that concert, about how some harmonies are just meant to be, even if they don't follow conventional rules. Wise beyond her years, that daughter of yours." "Ours," he said quietly, the word holding both question and certainty. "If you're interested in making this partnership complete." Victoria's breath caught, her professional poise softening into genuine emotion. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying we've built something extraordinary here, professionally, personally, completely, and I'd like to make it official. He took her hand, feeling the familiar calluses that matched his own. Partners in everything. Her answer was interrupted by Sarah's delighted squeal. She'd been watching them from nearby, of course. As their daughter, for that's what she'd become in all but name, rushed to embrace them, Marcus saw his old socket wrench displayed prominently in the Institute's heritage exhibition. Next to it sat Victoria's first waitressing apron, both items honored not as relics of the past, but as foundations of the future they were building together. Partners, Victoria whispered against his cheek as Sarah hugged them both, in absolutely everything. The family dinner table in their new home, a thoughtfully renovated historic house halfway between Chase Innovations and the Institute, had become the heart of their transformed life. Tonight, it was covered with Sarah's MIT acceptance package, Victoria's quarterly reports, and Marcus's latest patent applications, all sharing space with Emily's framed photo and a homemade lasagna that filled the kitchen with comfortable aromas. "Dad, you're going to love this," Sarah said, pulling up a presentation on her tablet. The summer program students retrofitted an entire fleet of city maintenance trucks using the Henderson Chase system. Their efficiency metrics are incredible. Marcus watched his daughter's animation with pride. In the year since the Institute's opening, she'd become its unofficial ambassador, bridging the gap between young engineering students and experienced mechanics with her unique blend of theoretical knowledge and practical understanding. The best part, Victoria added, serving another portion of lasagna, is that 3 of those students are children of mechanics who got certified through our program. Full circle. The Henderson Institute had exceeded every expectation. What started as a training center had evolved into a movement, transforming not just how people thought about sustainable technology, but who got to participate in innovation. Marcus's insistence on making the technology accessible to independent mechanics had created a nationwide network of certified installers, each adding their own practical wisdom to the growing knowledge base. "Remember Mrs. Rodriguez's Corolla?" Marcus asked, smiling at the memory. "She just got it converted at her grandson's shop. He went through our certification program last spring. The one you helped design," Sarah reminded him. "Mom would love how you've structured the teaching modules, theory and practice working together, just like she always promoted." Victoria touched Emily's photo gently, a gesture that had become natural over the past year. Their relationship had deepened into something beautiful, not replacing Emily's memory, but honoring it while building something new. The wedding 3 months ago had been a perfect reflection of this. Intimate, meaningful, and bridging all aspects of their lives. "Speaking of teaching," Victoria said, "the board approved our expansion proposal. We're opening 5 new Institute branches next year, each partnered with local repair shops and community colleges." Marcus nodded, thinking of how far they'd come. His old garage had been transformed into the Institute's first hands-on training center, where experienced mechanics taught alongside engineering professors. The walls still held his original tools, now part of a living history that inspired new generations. Dr. Chen called earlier. He mentioned, "The latest modifications to the system have reduced installation time by another 30%. She says it's because we incorporated feedback from the certified mechanics, their practical experience improving the theoretical design. That's what makes our approach unique," Victoria agreed. "We're not just developing technology, we're developing a community of innovators. Every mechanic who masters the system becomes a potential teacher, every shop a potential research center." Sarah gathered the dinner dishes, moving with the easy familiarity of someone completely at home. "My physics teacher used our model as a case study today. How sustainable innovation needs to be economically sustainable too, making green technology accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford new electric vehicles." The evening settled into comfortable routine. Sarah working on her MIT preparation courses at one end of the table, Victoria reviewing quarterly projections, Marcus sketching ideas for their next innovation. The scene would have seemed impossible 2 years ago. A CEO, a former mechanic, and their academically gifted daughter sharing such easy domesticity. Oh, I almost forgot. Victoria looked up from her work. The Symphony Guild asked if we'd host their next fundraiser. They want to showcase how engineering and arts education can work together. Marcus smiled, remembering how their relationship had deepened through those early symphony dates, how Victoria had taught him to hear the mathematics in music while he showed her the music in machines. Now they regularly hosted events that brought together corporate leaders, artists, mechanics, and educators, breaking down barriers in every direction. We should invite that mechanic from Toledo, Sarah suggested, the one who used musical timing to perfect the hybrid conversion process. His video has gone viral in the engineering forums. Add him to the certification teacher program, Marcus agreed. That's exactly the kind of innovative thinking we want to encourage. Victoria reached for his hand across the table, her wedding ring catching the warm kitchen light. You've started something remarkable, you know. This isn't just about hybrid technology anymore. It's about hybrid thinking, bringing different worlds together to create something better than either could achieve alone. We started something remarkable, Marcus corrected gently, including both his wife and daughter in his gaze. All of us, together. Sarah closed her textbook, looking thoughtful. You know what Mom used to say about engines? That they're really just different parts, learning to work in harmony. Maybe that's what we're really doing here, helping different parts of society learn to work together. The wisdom in her words settled over the table like a blessing. Outside, the city lights twinkled, including the bright gleam of the Institute, where tomorrow would bring new students, new challenges, new opportunities to bridge worlds. Inside, in the warm kitchen that had become their heart, 3 people, who had once inhabited different worlds, sat together, planning futures and sharing dreams, their lives moving in perfect harmony. Marcus's old socket wrench held a place of honor in his new office at the Institute, displayed in a custom case alongside his first patent certificate. Every morning, he touched the glass briefly, a reminder of where he'd started and how far. They'd all come. 2 years after the Institute's opening, its impact had exceeded even Victoria's ambitious projections. The Henderson chase system had become the industry standard for sustainable vehicle conversion, but more importantly, it had transformed how innovation happened in Detroit and beyond. Today was especially significant. The Institute's first graduation ceremony combined with the launch of their nationwide apprenticeship program. Marcus stood at his office window, watching the graduates gathering below, mechanics in pressed work shirts, engineering students in formal attire, all wearing the Institute's deep blue stoles. Ready for the big speech? Victoria asked from the doorway, elegant as always, in a suit that matched the Institute's colors. Sarah's already in the auditorium, running final checks on the video feeds from our satellite locations. Their daughter had deferred her MIT enrollment for a year to help establish the Institute's student outreach program, bringing her unique perspective to its development. The decision had proved so successful that MIT had created a special joint study program, allowing her to split her time between formal education and practical innovation. Just thinking about Emily, Marcus admitted, adjusting his tie, still not quite comfortable in formal wear, but learning. Remember that photo from our first garage? The one where she's teaching that automotive class? Victoria moved to his side, her presence warm and understanding. The one where she's showing those high school students how to diagnose engine problems by ear. Sarah has it on her desk at the student center. She believed in this, you know. Not exactly this. She couldn't have imagined the scale of it, but the idea that everyone deserves access to knowledge, that practical experience and formal education could work together. She helped build the foundation, Victoria said softly. And look what's grown from it. They made their way to the auditorium, now packed with families, industry leaders, and media. The wall of screens showed similar scenes from institute branches across the country. In each location, certified mechanics sat ready to mentor new apprentices, continuing the cycle of shared knowledge. Sarah met them backstage, practically bouncing with excitement. Wait till you see the surprise at the end. The satellite locations. Have something planned. Marcus took the podium, looking out over the gathered faces. He saw Mrs. Rodriguez and her grandson, now running a thriving green conversion shop. Dr. Chen, whose brilliant engineering had helped refine their systems. Lisa Martinez, coordinating with their nationwide network. James, who'd become family. Along the way, 2 years ago, he began, we talked about breaking down barriers, about bringing different worlds together. Today, I see that vision realized in each of you. Every graduate here represents a bridge between theoretical knowledge and practical wisdom, between traditional skills and innovative thinking. Victoria joined him, their shoulders touching in their familiar way. The Henderson Chase system began as a technology, but it's grown into something more profound. It's become a philosophy about how innovation really happens, not in isolated laboratories or exclusive boardrooms, but in the dynamic space where different perspectives meet. And that philosophy, Sarah added, stepping up to join them, is changing more than just how we think about technology. It's changing who gets to participate in shaping the future. On cue, the wall of screens lit up with faces from across the country, mechanics, engineers, students, and teachers, all speaking in turn about how the Institute had transformed their communities. The final speaker was a young woman from Detroit, daughter of a mechanic, now leading her own engineering team. The Henderson Institute taught me that I didn't have to choose between my father's practical wisdom and my dreams of innovation. She said, they showed me how to bring those worlds together. Marcus felt Victoria's hand slip into his as Sarah beamed beside them. They watched as graduates received their certificates, each representing countless hours of learning, teaching, and breaking down barriers. Every success story echoed Emily's belief in the power of shared knowledge to change lives. The ceremony ended with an announcement that would have once seemed impossible. The Institute's methods were being adopted by major universities and technical schools nationwide, creating a new standard for integrated education. Later, in Marcus's office, they shared a quiet moment before the evening celebrations. Sarah had placed a new photo next to Emily's, their blended family at the Institute's entrance, all three of them smiling with shared purpose. Mum would love this, Sarah said, touching both photos. Not just what we've built, but how we built it together. Marcus looked at his wife and daughter, at the Institute humming with activity below, at the city beyond where innovation was taking new forms every day. Different worlds coming together, creating harmonies that no one could have predicted. Together, he agreed, holding them close. That's how all the best things are built.